And we are live. Good evening, everybody. It is Monday, February 28th. This is the Board of Education meeting for School District 61. We'll start with our acknowledgement of the traditional territories. The Greater Victoria School District wishes to recognize and acknowledge the Esquimalt and Songhees nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. Can we first get a motion to approve the agenda? We've got some amendments to make tonight as well that I'll jump into. So moved by Tom. Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Jordan. So hopefully with the consent of trustees, so we don't have to go through each of these individually. We have three amendments. One is to strike or remove the Lansdowne Middle School South partial disposal third reading, and we are moving this to March 14th. Reasons being because of timeline issues and working with our partner in this process, the organization, through the disposal process. They're having some timeline issues and challenges, so the effort is to remove this from tonight for consideration on the 14th, the board meeting on the 14th. So that would be the first amendment. Second would be to remove the Victoria. I have a request here to remove the Victoria Hospice presentation from this evening's agenda, and then to add under my chair's report, which would be C1D, public apology. So do I have consent of the board to move all of these together, or do folks want to do each of these individually? Just looking for consent around the table. Are we okay if we do all of these at once? Looking for all trustees. I'm not seeing any concerns. So, okay, we'll do those all at once. So those amendments are there. They're unanimously agreed to. So A7F for those watching, E2C, those are both removed to be brought to the March 14th board meeting. And then we're adding C1D, an apology, a public apology piece under the chair's report. And then okay, so those amendments are moved. I'll now look for any more amendments to the agenda. I see Jordan, and then I've got Nicole. So I'll go to Jordan first, and then I'll go to Nicole.
I was just going to suggest that H1D is out of order as it's been acted on essentially.
H1D.
So I would suggest that we strike that.
That is Trustee Duncan's motion around writing a letter to community stakeholders and rights holders. Okay, we'll maybe handle that one individually. So the motion is to amend to strike that from the agenda this evening. Do I have a seconder? Well, we'll do this intentionally. Elaine seconded. So is there discussion on that? I just want to make sure we play through this intentionally here at the table. Nicole, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I would just say that I think it's unfortunate that we were not able to have a board discussion about it at the public meeting, but I appreciate that a letter has been sent by the chair.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion on that amendment? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on removing H1. Sorry, let me just scroll down here again. My apologies. H1D. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Any opposed? And abstentions? Nicole, I don't think I got your vote. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I count your vote.
Yeah, I'm fine with it being removed.
Okay. So okay. So that's unanimous. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Is there any further amendments to the agenda? Yes, Nicole, please.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to add a trustee report under C. Will it be C2? Have we added something there already?
Yeah, okay. We can do C2A for trustee report for you.
Sounds good. And then the other amendment I had was to add under correspondence the letter that we just referenced. So the open letter to stakeholders and to rights holders from the chair dated the 24th of February. regarding this trustee censure and suspension under correspondence. I think it would be at B13. Is that right?
B13. That's all very reasonable. Okay, so we have, just for edification, adding Trustee Duncan a report under C2A, and then adding correspondence, the open letter from the chair to stakeholders under correspondence B13. Trustee Whitaker.
Thanks. I'd also like to add a trustee report, and I wonder if we could just switch the order of the last two motions of mine. Sorry, I gotta get there.
Sorry, Trustee Whitaker. Sorry, before we go. So your report would be C2B, okay? So just for the minute taker, C2B for Trustee Whitaker's trustee report. And then we've got B is the BCSTA membership, and C is the petition to the minister, or petition the minister.
Just reverse the order of those.
You want to switch those? Okay. Our trustees, are we okay with switching those? So B becomes C and C becomes B. Okay. I see no concerns or challenges there. Any more amendments? And please, staff, if I miss any of these, send me a little nudge. Okay, seeing and hearing no more further amendments, I will call on approval of the agenda. All those in favor of the agenda as amended? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. We will go now to approval of the minutes that the January 24th, 2022 regular board meeting minutes be approved. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Tom, seconded by Elaine. Any discussion on approval of the minutes from the 24th? Nicole?
Yeah, so I wondered if we could just clarify something in the minutes on page 22 of the pack-up. We've got a list of public disclosure of in-camera items, and we had a motion that was disclosed to the public at the 24th of January public meeting, which doesn't appear under public disclosure of in-camera items. I believe it's just was a motion that was moved under, I want to say under correspondence, but and so I'm just wondering if I appreciate that it may not be something that can be clarified here and now, but if we could clarify that the motion that was voted into the public from the in-camera on the 24th of January is properly reflected in the minutes as an item reported out.
Nicole, are you okay if, I don't know if staff can answer that now. Are we okay if we leave that with staff to
Yes.
confirm?
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay, no, thank you for flagging that. Appreciate it. Any further discussion on approval of the minutes from the 24th? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call a question on the minutes from the 24th. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we have no student achievement reports, no district presentations. So community presentations. We have our first presenter is Edith Lori Kahunga. Now, because Edith is coming in from Tanzania and they're having some power challenges, Edith has let us know that she may not be able to present. So it may be Starla Anderson presenting.
Oh, there she is.
Tonight.
Mute.
Good evening, Edith. Are you there? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, Edith, I'm glad you're able to connect all the way from Tanzania. Didn't you say it was 6:30 a.m. there?
It is.
Well, there we go. So you have 5 minutes to present. I won't interrupt you during your presentation, but I'll let you know when your 5 minutes are up. Of course, I'll give you a bit of grace at the end to wrap and finish your thoughts. So I'll let you start your 5 minutes now.
Thank you, Trustee Chair Painter, for allowing me to speak tonight. Next, I want to thank Trustees Whitaker and Duncan for speaking out regarding the Board of Education suspending 2 trustees, Trustee McNally and Trustee Painter. Finally, thank you to Trustee Duncan for putting forward the motion on February 22nd to release information to the public regarding the suspensions. I speak in support of Trustee Duncan's motion to release information to the stakeholders and the public on how the board came to a decision to suspend 2 trustees. Since school trustees are elected from 6 municipalities of Greater Victoria, it is essential that the public is informed on why the majority of the board thought that suspension was necessary. Thank you, Chair Painter, for releasing some information to the public on February 24th regarding the suspension. However, the information was minimal and did not provide sufficient information on what led the board to their decision. And yes, I do understand that some discussion regarding allegations of staff harassment and bullying would be in camera. However, the public has a right to more information that led to the suspensions, especially since it is out of the school board's mandate. I've examined the School Act and regulations, and I could not find the term suspension of trustees. I also went back to SD61 board bylaws and policies and didn't see any reference to suspensions of trustees or a process that stipulates how a board would suspend a trustee. The majority of the board do not have the power to remove a trustee from their position. However, the board does have the authority to censor trustees, which is both spelled out in the School Act and in SD61 bylaws. When people are elected, they are elected because they have convinced the voters that they will represent their interests at the board table. Trustees come to the table with their own experiences and backgrounds. They also come with their own agenda. However, it is up to the board chair to work with all members of the board and to ensure that the board works together for the best interests of the 20,000 plus students it serves. The chair has a very critical role in building a team at the board table, despite the individual differences. It is not an easy job if you want to be fair and respected by all trustees. I speak from experience. In order for the business of the district to continue, the chair must not take sides, but must work with all members of the team and not only with the majority. Let me take you back a bit in history. Late trustee John Young took his own board, SD61 Board of Education, to court because he believed that extra school fees should be eliminated. And we all know that John won his court case in 1997. Don't you think that if the board had the authority to remove Trustee Young from the board table, they would have? I am sure that all trustees did not support his ideas, viewpoint, debate, and court action. However, they didn't have the authority to remove him as a trustee, even though he was suing them. As a result, Trustee Young continued in his role as a trustee and was re-elected many times thereafter. To my knowledge, no other school board has suspended trustees. Hence, your action will set a precedent for all locally elected officials. When people are elected as a school trustee, mayor and council, regional districts, they are accountable to the public who voted them in. In 2018, there were 67,273 people who voted for the school trustees for the Greater Victoria School Board. Trustee McNally received the second highest votes at 22,790 votes, 33.88% of the votes cast. Trustee Rob Painter received 20,103 votes, equivalent to 29.88% of the votes cast. As stated at the board meeting last week, both trustees Whitaker and Duncan did not participate in the vote for suspending the two trustees. So tonight I ask the 5 remaining trustees, do you feel that your 5 votes have more authority than the 22,790 votes who were voted for Trustee McNally and the 20,103 voters who voted for Trustee Painter? I also ask that you please show the public where the board got the authority from the School Act regulations or SD61 bylaws or policy to suspend the trustees since they are not able to fulfill their duties as elected officials. The public has a right to know. If you feel that more information cannot be disclosed to the general public because of the in-camera information, I ask that you immediately reinstate them so that Trustee
I'm just going to let you know
McNally
if you can finish your thought. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt your flow, but yeah.
So I ask that you immediately reinstate them so they can continue on with their duties to the end of the term. If you choose to censor them in accordance with the bylaws and policy, then that is a decision of the board. At least then you're following your own bylaws and policies within your mandate and not working outside of your mandate. Let's leave it up to the constituents of the 6 municipalities within the Greater Victoria area who will determine who is at the board table in November 2022. Thank you
Edith.
so much for your time. And I ask that I'll send it to my speech onto Vicky, and I'll ask that it be also included in the board package minutes. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Edith. We'll be sure to include that in the minutes when we come to the next board meeting. It will be included. But thank you for your presentation tonight. We appreciate it. All the best.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Isabella Cardua von Specht, proposed land disposal, Lansdowne Middle School South. Hi, Isabella, are you with us? Or Isabel, my apologies. I don't know why I'm adding an A on there.
Thank you. I am here.
Okay, Isabel, you have 5 minutes. I won't interrupt you during your presentation, but when your time is up, I'll let you know and I'll let you finish your thoughts so that you can conclude. So your 5 minutes starts now.
Actually, Chair Painter, I had requested that a slide be shown. For my
Yes.
presentation.
Okay, let me pause. We'll start over. We'll put that slideshow up for you.
Thank you.
Certainly, one moment. I can share my screen.
Perfect.
It's just one slide that I'll ask to have remain while I speak.
Absolutely. We can accommodate
Thank you.
that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, one moment, please.
Not a problem, Andy.
Can I believe it's being shared now?
Yes.
It is. Is that, are you
Yes.
good with that? Okay, Isabel, I will start your 5 minutes now.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Isabel Cordua von Specht. To start, I invite you to read this quote from Gandhi. Trustees, your values have the power to shape the destiny of this community in a profound way. What do we know to date of your values? If your values are shaped by your habits, here is what we know. That you engage in agreements unbeknownst to the public without prior consultation. Lansdowne South is not the only one to suffer this process. That once these agreements are made public, you consult in a manner that is best defined as a one-way communication exercise. That you do not answer questions and concerns that the public raises with you. Where are your responses to the hundreds of submissions you've received? In fact, you stated to me at the February 14th board ops meeting that my questions were, quote, not questions we're going to answer in the public, end of quote. That you dismissed the need to be accountable to the public for your decisions. At the same board meeting, the trustee decision-making process was described as follows, quote, they gather the information. When they feel they have the information one way or another, they make a decision. That's the process, end of quote. We don't get to understand how you arrive at that decision, what factors you've considered, with whom you've engaged to deliberate the issues. And beyond these habits, there are individual actions you've taken that are drawing the attention and ire of the public. You are facing one, community reaction to the non-transparent processes surrounding the proposed lease of Big High land. 2, an outcry against this proposed land sale on Lansdowne South, as demonstrated by the over 800 signatures on a petition started just 1 week ago. And 3, censure for your disregard for consultation requirements set out in SD61, Regulation 7110, and Ministry Policy 1163. Most recently, you took the unprecedented action of suspending 2 trustees, an action questioned by many, including Trustees Whitaker and Duncan. You are a deeply divided board, a situation most evident at the board meetings I've witnessed. There is a crisis of confidence in the board. Songhees Nation has called for your resignations. The Greater Victoria Teachers Association has voted no confidence in the board. The Victoria Confederation of Parent Advisory Councils has stated that it has, quote, lost confidence in this board's ability to conduct itself in a democratic manner, end of quote. And there are many more in the community who are watching in dismay. I believe you have lost the legitimacy and authority to make this enormously impactful, and as hundreds have communicated, harmful decision to sell this land. Please show us tonight that you are up to the task of the leadership role vested in you by the public. It is not too late to do so. We call on you to step away from this sale. That action would be significant. It would demonstrate your responsiveness to what the community is telling you. It would demonstrate your ability to change your minds, to change your beliefs and thoughts regarding an issue. Is it possible that you simply did not know about the true value of this land to the community? That you were unaware of all the issues that converge at the site? Consider taking a page from Lisa Help's leadership approach of admitting to have gotten something wrong. That is okay. That we can respect. And then what? What is the best way forward to recover from this crisis? How can you bring back into repute your standing as trustees? It is time to rebuild your and our confidence and trust in the unity, integrity, and competence of the board. Trust is engendered by demonstrating a pattern of trustworthy actions. Such action would include supporting open, honest dialogue within the board and with the community to achieve the best informed outcomes. I believe in the heartfelt desire each of you have in becoming a school trustee to serve our students and the public for the greater good. But that desire to serve needs to be founded on an alignment using Gandhi's framework of your beliefs, thoughts, words, actions, habits, and values. Trustees, your values have the power to shape the destiny of this community in a profound way tonight. You have the power to affect this and future generations of students. The amount of school space they have to learn in, the amount of green space they have to thrive in, the learning opportunities they gain from living and learning next to a creek, and the wildlife they get to experience. You have the power to affect the quality of life in this community as it densifies, as more single-family homes are replaced by large complexes with little outdoor space. You have the power to affect the financial security of downstream homeowners hit by serious flooding. You have the power to affect ecosystem health, including the health of Bowker Creek and the wildlife that depends on it. What values will you represent today? What legacy will you leave? We ask you to leave a legacy that you and our grandchildren can be proud of. Say no to selling this land at Lansdowne Middle School South Campus. Thank you.
Isabel, that was right on 5 minutes. Well done. Thank you very much for your presentation and for coming to speak to us this evening. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Andy, can we now bring in Ruth Curry? Proposed land disposal, Lansdowne Middle School South. Hi, Ruth, are you with us? Hi there, Ruth. It's Ryan, Chair of the Board of SD61. I'm just checking in to see if you're with us.
Yes, I just managed to unmute myself. I'm here.
Not a problem. Did you have a presentation or were you
I
just speaking
did.
to the board?
No, I sent, yes, and I sent a slide pack. So if that could be put up, I'd appreciate it very much.
Yeah, we'll put that up. And then when we're ready, I'll let you know when the 5 minutes begins. So don't worry, we won't cut into your time.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll just put this into presentation and we should be good to go.
And Ruth, you can let our IT person know when to advance slides. Is that okay?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay, Ruth, your 5 minutes starts now.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Painter and Board Trustees. Tonight, I'd like to speak about thinking like a watershed. More than 100 years ago, Victoria was a fledgling community with a vibrant commercial and residential core and big hopes for the future. As the community grew and the need for houses, hotels, and offices increased, the townspeople were faced with what to do with creeks, marshes, and ponds. And by and large, we did the expedient thing. The concept of a watershed was not well understood, if at all, and so we did what was necessary to build and expand, to farm and to flourish. We dug, we dumped fill, we ditched, and we drained. Next slide, please. That was the expedient thing to do. And each of these decisions was made in isolation. We looked at the immediate location and decided that a creek or a marsh was mighty inconvenient. And so we did our best to redirect the flows to places that didn't interfere with our daily activities, not imagining that we might be disrupting processes upon which we ourselves were dependent in so many ways. Next slide, please. As city grew, we deemed it appropriate to put most of this particular creek, the Bowker, into a box. Next slide, please. But we've since learned that the solution is not to keep building and installing bigger boxes. It's to give, wherever possible, the river room to run, room to meander, to slow down flows, to allow water to be absorbed by the landscape. In the 20th and 21st centuries, we have come to realize that the natural functions that watersheds offer us are beautifully efficient. I use that word beautifully with purpose, since creeks and marshes and ponds offer us not only a way to absorb, clean, and disperse our rain and runoff, but they offer us green and blue spaces of recreation and renewal. Next slide, please. These are spaces that are now woefully missing in our city, and especially in South Saanich. Well, we have other watersheds and other parks nearby. Why should we worry about an inconsequential little valley like the Bowkers? I believe that each and every one of us has good reasons to be mindful of this creek, because our little watershed contributes to the countless species within it, including us. It contributes to all the watersheds around it, which in turn feed other creeks and rivers all over the island and the province and beyond. It carries our rainfall and runoff and floods into the sea at Oak Bay, where it affects every living thing along our shorelines. Next slide, please. As public trustees of education, you have a particular duty of care to pay attention to how this watershed works, because it is a living laboratory in which to show our children how the world and its natural systems function. And so it behooves us to turn our attention, as so many communities are now doing, to repairing and restoring as much of the essential function of our little urban watershed as we possibly can, and to teach our children to be stewards of this vibrant, astonishing world. This is the nature of the attention that the community has been focusing on the entire Bowker Creek watershed for over 20 years. As guardians of the public trust, you are now presented with an extraordinary opportunity to support the efforts of your constituents, the parents and the students, the teachers and the taught, to recreate a beautiful, resilient, and functional landscape in this community. You can join with all the people who have so willingly given their time, toil, and expertise to ensure that we can live our whole long lives in the presence of cherished public natural spaces, to restore and rebuild the neighborhood. Or you can do the expedient thing and vote to sell the land. That will be your choice as individual trustees and as a board, and it will be your legacy. Tonight, I ask you to take a deep breath, step back and examine the potential of retaining this valued public asset and how that will benefit the entire watershed, its neighborhoods, and the people who live within them. To breathe, to inspire. I believe your actions tonight can inspire all of us and all of the generations to come. I urge you to think like a watershed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Ruth. I appreciate all the historical archive photos as well. And appreciate your time to come to us tonight and tell us your perspective. Thank you very much. Andy, can we let Lisa Timmons, President, Camosun Community Association, in to talk about SD61 land disposal, Lansdowne Middle School South? Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the board meeting this evening. You will have 5 minutes to give your presentation. I won't interrupt you, but I will let you know when your time is up. Did you have a presentation this evening, or were you planning to just speak to the board? Hi, Lisa. Can you hear me? Lisa, are you connected? Don't know if Lisa can hear us.
I'll try sending a chat message to Lisa.
Yes, I see she's off mute.
Thank you very much for your question.
Perhaps it's that issue of listening to the YouTube feed and being here at the same time. We'll just
Timmons, President, Camosun Community Association, in to talk about SD61 land disposal, Lansdowne Middle School South.
And I think I had a presentation as well.
Hi, Lisa, I can share that.
The board meeting this evening.
Can you hear me?
You will have 5 minutes to give your presentation.
Lisa, we can hear you, but
Can you hear me?
Your time is up. Did you have a presentation this evening, or are you planning to just speak to the board?
Yes, I did.
Andy,
Can you hear
can
me?
you let her know she's listening to a
I can't
delayed?
hear you.
Ryan,
I have an issue here. Can you hear me?
I don't know if she's
Hi-
looking at her
hi,
chat
Lisa.
window.
I got it. I've got it.
Hi, Lisa. There's a delay from the Zoom presentation to the YouTube replay. It's about 30 seconds.
Mhm.
So you will need to mute the YouTube playback.
I'll just close that out.
But thank you. Let me share. You've got a PDF presentation, I believe. So let me share that now.
Yeah, you know what? You can just switch to the last page of it. I'm cutting a lot out tonight.
Okay.
Certainly.
And Lisa, sorry, can you hear me?
I can now, yes.
Oh,
And you know,
okay.
it was my error. I'd actually muted it off lowered the volume on my computer. So I've got that going now.
That's okay. That's okay.
You
So
let me know, Ryan, you say go and I'll go.
absolutely. And I've just let you know, I won't interrupt. I'll let you finish, but I'll you know, if we're getting at the end and that piece, I'll let you know we're there, and I'll let you finish up your thought. So you do have 5 minutes to present. And I know we're going to the last slide. So you let me know when we're on your last slide.
You know, you put that on Greta there at the end. The last one. There we go.
On Greta? Okay, there we go. So Lisa, I will start my timer now and you're good to go.
That's great. First, I want to thank you, SD61 trustees, and those that are listening and watching tonight. Again, my name's Lisa Timmons, the president of the CCA, and appealing to you tonight to preserve this 2 acres of land based on your SD61 values. And I would request that the disposal of this property be suspended. And if it's appropriate tonight, I would like to see a motion to suspend the 3rd reading and altogether suspend the sale of this property. So first, preserving publicly owned urban green space is essential for healthy communities and is a fundamental environmental justice issue. The intense densification in our corridor means publicly owned green space is more vital and precious than ever. That public green space is about equality. Children are spending less and less time outside. Excess screen time is becoming a public health issue. Nature deficit disorder is real, and I think as teachers, you're experiencing this. Children do best when exposed to nature, and that is why we have seen an explosion in our outdoor classrooms and learning environments, nature-based preschools and outdoor education learning programs. Secondly, protecting our urban watersheds, green spaces, and forests are a necessity. The culture and ecological value of this land in particular has been well documented, and we have a moral obligation to restore this creek to its full potential, not partial potential. To ensure that salmon flow through these waters once again. Flooding is real here and downstream. We need to preserve this natural floodplain. It's a critical infrastructure asset, and we simply can't hope or ensure our way out of this climate crisis. We need to plan, mitigate, and allow for natural flood detention as outlined by the BCI experts and engineers. For weeks now, I have either emailed my concerns in letters or emails and direct presentations to SD61 board. And for viewers watching, I want you to appreciate where the frustration lies and why this process has been flawed from the beginning, based on the following concerns. The Ministry of Education's school building closure and disposal policy requirements have not been met. SD61 community consultation meeting was not adequate. A 75-minute Q&A session did not meet board consultation. It does not meet SD61's own consultation policy. There was a lack of two-way flow of information ideas. No background information on Boger Creek, the 20 years of technical study and collaboration or local community planning was provided in advance or at the session of the community engagement meetings. Board engagement summary report provided no quantification or analysis and marginalizes hundreds of pages of input and submissions into 5 short bullet points. Key technical implications raised by the Boger Creek Initiative were excluded from the summary. At the February 14th, 2022 Operations Policy and Planning The BCI was provided only 5 minutes to summarize 20 years of collaboration and technical information. Neither SD61 nor Victoria Hospice Societies have engaged the Friends of Boker Creek Society or the CCA in the development of any proposals, including the version provided to the board on February 18th. SD61 board approved a first and second reading without having any technical stormwater detention or engineering plans from Victoria Hospice. At the SD61 board meeting, board member Kim Morris made the statement, Saanich generally supports this plan, but however, Saanich plan to confirm that the planning department had not had a meeting with SD61 regarding the subject property. February 18th, 2022, Victoria Hospice submitted a new proposal, and it's markedly different from the one that Victoria Hospice presented in January 24th meeting. And so is it appropriate to even move this to a third meeting? And as noted, there's been a lack of confidence in the SD61 Board of Trustees is now well documented. So it raises questions around the legitimacy around board decisions. In 2018, your board endorsed the 2011 Boker Creek Blueprint and its 100-year action plan. And there's an expectation from the community to stand true to that endorsement. You've seen this face of Greta, and I just want to say, you know, you were this young once. We were this young once. And I just ask you, let's make the right decision tonight. So in closing, I ask SD61 trustees to suspend the sale of this property. Let's pool our energy to find an appropriate home for Victoria Hospice. Let's spend our energy around that versus challenging one another. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lisa, for your presentation tonight and for coming to speak to the board about this issue. I know it is really, really important to you, so I appreciate you, especially coming on behalf of the Camosun Community Association. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Andy, can we please bring in Soren Heinrich? Soren, welcome. I just want to make sure that you are hearing me about this issue. I know. Oh, we're having the playback issue. Soren, are you there?
Yes, I am. And have I muted YouTube sufficiently?
I think you have. We're all going to get used to that at some point here, I think. Soren, did you have a presentation for us this evening?
No, just words.
Okay, then I will start your presentation. I'll start your 5 minutes now. I won't interrupt you as you go through it. I will let you know when time is up, and I'll let you wrap your final thoughts. So your 5 minutes starts now.
Thank you very much, Chair Painter. I'm speaking about board culture and learning tonight. Observing the board proceedings over the past 4 months, I asked myself, what are the characteristics or the culture of this board? The February 24th open letter regarding the censure and suspension of 2 trustees addressing bullying, harassment, and humiliation of staff are serious accusations that must be dealt with. However, I'm not sure censure and suspension is the only way to treat the problem. I ask, were other disciplinary options suggested by the mediator? Were verbal warnings or progressive discipline or probation offered? And if not, why not? The recent announcements of the boycotting of the board by stakeholder representatives suggests to me that this board is in crisis. Are stresses on the board and staff having an effect on its ability to perform the functions and fiduciary or otherwise? I believe there is a way to resolve this crisis, but this will require a renewed commitment to the trustees' code of ethics. And I read from it here. Whereas the role of school trustee is fundamental to the education system in that it embodies the trust of the community in the important enterprise of developing directions to shape the minds, bodies, emotions, and spirits of its youthful citizens, the code of ethics for trustees is deemed essential. Therefore, as a school trustee, I will regard the well-being of every student as my primary obligation. I will bring about positive change for all students and for the educational system. I will undertake my duties diligently and with integrity. I will respect the rights of fellow trustees, employees, students, and parents. Every board has a culture made of people and personalities, their relationship to each other, staff, partners, stakeholders, individuals, groups, and communities that they work with and for. Every board evolves in this context. The author, Catherine Tyler Scott, writes in her book, Creating Caring and Capable Boards, about depth education for trustees. Institutions need two kinds of leaders: those who are inside and carry the active day-to-day roles, and those who stand outside but are intimately concerned and who, with the benefit of some detachment, oversee the active leaders. These are the trustees. Implicit in the use of oversee and detachment is the need for trustees to see things whole and to take the longer view by benefit of some distance from the daily pressures of the organization's life. Not only are they responsible for developing vision and determining the future direction of the organization, they are also charged with establishing and maintaining the overarching beliefs and values that shape the organization's character, define and guide its work, and significantly affect the lives of those it serves. From the same February 24th letter about censuring the two trustees, I am pleased to read that this board has engaged the services of external facilitators and has conducted workshops on such topics as good governance, Robert's Rules of Order, effective meetings, role of the chair, role of the trustee, and trustee conduct. Is there a facilitator who can help the board directly address the issues of its culture? A board needs to continually assess its culture and ask if the trustees can exercise the code of ethics freely without fear of censure, that they may vote in the confidence that they are not under any undue pressure, coercion, or influence, and may freely declare their own conflict of interest, real or perceived, in any issue, may recuse themselves from voting, or may vote according to their conscience after free discussion, including questioning of issues at hand. In closing, a caring and capable board makes a commitment to their own learning and development and collectively commits to maintaining and improving the board culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation this evening, Soren, and for bringing to us your perspective on board culture and learning. I think it's extraordinarily helpful that you provided that insight. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair Painter.
All right, and because we have removed the hospice presentation from this evening, that culminates our community presentations. So now go into correspondence. I will be pulling out B3, which is Township of Esquimalt to SD61, childcare in school facilities. Will any other trustees like correspondence to be pulled out for discussion? Nicole.
Yeah, just bear with me a moment. I just need to refer back to my notes. I believe it's B6 and B8. That's right. So B6 and B8, I'd like to pull out, please.
Okay, so we're pulling B3, B6, B8. Any other correspondence that trustees would like pulled out, please? Trustee Whitaker.
B9.
B9. So we have B3, B6, B8, B9. And last call for trustees to pull any correspondence. Seeing and hearing none. Let's go first to B3. So B3 trustees, you'll see is the Township of Esquimalt to SD61 childcare in school facilities. It's a request from the Township of Esquimalt to provide an opportunity to have a representative from SD61 come to speak to council. It is not necessarily requesting a staff-to-staff discussion. It is requesting a trustee to council discussion. What I would hope, I have had a conversation with Trustee Ferris, who is the representative to the Esquimalt municipality. I've also had a discussion with staff, and a staff member would be willing to join Trustee Ferris for that conversation with the town, as they have asked. My request from trustees would be if trustees could provide a motion, because I feel it would be appropriate to have a motion to have me write a letter to the town of Esquimalt, letting them know that they can expect Trustee Ferris and a staff member to come, and then we can coordinate a timing around that. Nicole, I saw your hand go up first, so I'll go to you first.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question. I wondered,
Sure.
is Trustee Ferris our municipal liaison for Esquimalt?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? Elaine? No
So-
question.
No, I was just going to put the motion on the floor.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so thank you. Motion moved by Elaine. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Jordan. Any discussion? Trustee Whitaker, I saw your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just also wanted to make sure that somebody clarified that we let the municipalities know that you're the chair and not myself. I just noticed that
We
it's
did,
a
yes.
question, so, okay.
Yeah, we responded. Yeah, to make sure that knew. Thank you for that, for clarifying that. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. The motion is that the chair would write and respond to the township's letter, providing trustee and staff representative to come and present to council around childcare in school facilities. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. So we'll now go to B6. Trustee Duncan Nicole wanted that moved out. Nicole, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I wanted to just circle back to this letter. We didn't get a chance to discuss it previously. I know that it came in just highlighting the need to consult around the NLC and the daycare building at Vic High. And I wondered in light of, I know that I think it was the next day that, we started our process around consultation. And I wonder if we can get a bit of an update around where we are with that and what the next steps are.
Sure. Thank you, Nicole. I'll put that through to Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Sure. I'm not sure that we have an update for tonight, having not prepared one. And I don't believe our communications manager is here, who normally attends to some of the consultation. And I do believe this consultation is in the hands of the principal as per our policy. So we can certainly bring an update for the board at the next meeting if you'd like.
Perhaps just a recommendation, perhaps an update at operations, if that's not too soon. Secretary Treasurer Morris, would that be doable?
Yes.
Okay, Nicole, is that sufficient?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, excellent. Any others on B6 before we move on to the next? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to B8. Back over to you, Nicole. This is the response letter from BC Hydro to us around net metering.
It is, yeah. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to, just acknowledge that we did receive a response from BC Hydro, and I think it was quite helpful in that it highlights that what the requirements are, or the next stage in the process. If we as a board, whether it's in the context of Cedar Hill Middle School or any of our capital projects in the future, what the process is to have more solar panels than we've currently are planning for at Cedar Hill. It speaks to an engineering and interconnection review, which is necessary in order to assess really the capacity of the BC Hydro network, for lack of a better way to describe it. And so I wondered, in light of BC Hydro pointing us to the appropriate process, and I believe even giving us a point of contact, I wondered where we are and if we have reached out to ascertain how in future, even if it's not in the context of Cedar Hill, we might increase our use of solar panels.
Thank you, Nicole. I'll put that question through again to Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Sure, thank you. Yes, we are in receipt of the letter. Capital and facility staff are intending to work with BC Hydro to determine what exactly the engineering study might entail and what costs that might mean for school district number 61. We can bring that back to the board, but at this point, staff in capital are pursuing what that study might mean, and they're pursuing that with BC Hydro.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. Nicole, was that sufficient?
No, that's great. Thank you. I look forward to a further update. Thanks.
So do I. Very good. So we'll go now to, before I go, B8, any other comments or questions from trustees on the BC Hydro letter to us regarding net metering? Seeing and hearing none, I'll go to B9, Ms. Cordua von Specht to SD61, Trustees Land Disposal. Trustee Whitaker wanted this removed. So Trustee Whitaker, over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that this actually seems to really blend well with the Q&A, and that the trustee questions that were sent to the Secretary Treasurer are going to be turned into a Q&A. And I just wanted to pull this out because I thought there was some good questions that I didn't ask because I saw those, that maybe this could be added to those Q&A.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Secretary Treasurer Morris, you can respond if you like, or you can just take that for information.
I can take that for information and incorporate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, trustees, we'll go to trustee reports. Chair's report. I do not have a chair's report for you this month. Annual work plan, March 2002. Before we go to or away from that, are there any comments or questions around the annual work plan for March 2022? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go to the election of the Bcpc representative. We do have a vacancy in the Bcpc representative, so we need to fill it. So the process, trustees will be familiar with this. You each have the text number for Kim and Deb. I will call for nominations for the election of the Bcpc rep from SD61. If you can text your nomination to Kim and Deb, they will report out once those nominations are received. If we need to go to a vote, we can go to a vote at that point. So first, I will just make a call for nominations for the Bcpc rep from SD61. This is the first call of 3. I will do a second call for nominations for the election of Bcpc rep from SD61. I will do a third and final call for the Bcpc rep from SD61. And I will now close nominations, and we will wait for Kim and Deb to report out the nominees. All right, we have one nominee, Tom Ferris. Tom, do you accept the nomination to be the Bcpc rep for SD61?
Thank you. I do.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Congratulations. You are the Bcpc rep for SD61. We will make sure to communicate to them that you are our new representative. And finally, I have a statement I want to read, and the statement is directed specifically to Kim Morris, the Secretary Treasurer. On behalf of the board, I would like to formally apologize for the bullying and harassment you have experienced as a result of the public statements made by some trustees, which impugned your competence and integrity. These comments were unfair, were not reflective of the views of the board, and should not have been made. The board has full confidence in your ability and performance as our Secretary Treasurer. As an employer, our goal is to ensure that all board employees are treated with dignity and with respect. We regret that this has not been your experience, and we acknowledge the impact this has had on you professionally and personally. We very much regret that this has occurred. All right, we'll now move to trustee reports. C2A, Nicole, you are first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I've been reflecting on where we are as a board, and what I keep coming back to is that democracy requires effort. Democracy requires our care and our attention, and for us to never take it for granted. And when we do, democracy requires us to stand up and to defend it. As an elected official and a citizen, I do not take lightly actions that deprive an elected official of their elected right to represent the concerns and issues of members of our community. I expect to see reasonable and proportionate responses to issues that arise, but respect for the reality, which is that trustees are not only members of a corporate board, we are also elected through open and free elections. The majority around any decision-making table must recognize the importance of creating space to hear and to consider the views of the minority. Efforts to resolve conflict that inevitably arise require ongoing, genuine and open dialogue and fair process. It requires a willingness to ensure that all trustees have access to the information needed to carry out our elected role with full and open discussion in all matters, with respect and consideration to make fully informed decisions in good faith. There must be a commitment to recognize and make space for honest and respectful criticism, full and open discussion in all matters, and to include and to welcome differing perspectives. We are in the middle of another budget process. There will be difficult conversations and competing priorities. We will hear folks talk about the importance of keeping students at the heart of all that we do at this board table. And we need to focus on finding meaningful solutions to restore the trust of stakeholders and rights holders. I would ask us all to seriously reflect on what that requires of each of us as members of an elected board. How do we, as one of 9 elected trustees, make space for stakeholders, for rights holders, and our colleagues? And we must ask ourselves, how can we demonstrate our commitment to collaborate and to find solutions that truly keep at the heart of our decisions our students? Thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. I appreciate that statement. I didn't time folks for this, so I'm going to give Trustee Whitaker the opportunity of not necessarily being timed, but I certainly will try to keep things tight. So Trustee Whitaker, you can go ahead and make your trustee report.
Thank you. And as any of our regular viewers know, I like to provide information and resources in my trustee reports. So first, I want to thank the Chair Painter for the letter of February 24th and for providing that while there was no express authority in the School Act, that the authority and the case of the Barnett versus the Caribou Regional District case was the authority used and relied upon to suspend Trustees Painter and McNally. I wonder if Chair Painter has read the full reasons for judgment on this case. In the judgment, the Honorable Mr. Justice McKinnon speaks to the ability
And I think we've lost you. I'm not sure what's happened. We've got a frozen camera. So we'll just pause for a sec.
Sure.
Yeah, Jordan, go ahead, please.
I'm just like a point of order, because from my understanding, the deliberations were in camera. So I feel like I have a lot to say about this too, but I'm not giving a report or sharing my perspective or a speech because I feel like I'm not allowed to, given our bylaws and confidentiality. So I just wonder if we want to think about that in the context of how we're going forward with this, because otherwise I'd like my 2 minutes as well. But I think we get into a very slippery slope around what's in camera and what isn't. And I understand that as part of the Trustee Code of Ethics, we are to uphold board decisions. And, a part of that is having to uphold decisions that we don't always agree with, which has happened to all of us at some point. So just some considerations for you, Chair, and for the board around how we're moving forward.
Thanks, Jordan. It's certainly a challenging circumstance. I don't disagree with you that trustee reports are intended to be reports about trustee work and specifically focused on what trustees have been doing in their community. I do agree with you that I am challenged and because this is a point of order, I'm speaking to it. I'm challenged by trustees speaking publicly about something that is expressly in camera. I know I have made that case several times, not just at this table, but in other venues. And so I would ask trustees to respect not just the will of the board in terms of the decision it has made in this case, but also respect our code of conduct, our code of ethics, and our duty to keep things in camera and confidential when they need to remain there. So Trustee Whitaker, I'm not sure if the remainder of your report is, again, an effort to speak to this specific matter. I would request that if you do want to continue speaking to an in-camera matter, that you bring.
So just to clarify, I'm not speaking to
Trustee Whitaker,
anything
I'm
in
sorry.
camera.
Trustee Whitaker, I'm really sorry. I'm not finished. That if you have something you would like that is either an in-camera matter, a result of in-camera discussions, your colleagues are also have a right to be heard on this issue. And if you have colleagues around the table who are concerned that they cannot speak because of privacy, it is unfair to then bring these pieces into the public. So will allow you to continue, but please be mindful of the challenge of needing to keep this in camera. So you had, when you froze, you had a minute left. I stopped it, so you can continue.
So maybe you want to tell me where I froze.
I don't know where you froze. I just know you were in a minute in, so.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that I am not speaking to anything in camera. I'm speaking about this case. And what I'm saying is that controlling misconduct does not mean the deprivation of all functions. In fact, when you read the case, as anyone may do, in the judge's conclusion in paragraph 58, they state, I was not able to find any legislative authority setting out a precise procedure to accomplish such a goal of restricting contact with staff, nor was any suggested to me by counsel. It should also be noted that the director in this case was awarded costs by the judge. Paragraph 60 says the comments of the chair indicates not only a clear bias against Mr. Barnett, but also a complete disregard for any fair process. He took the lead in the process to sanction Mr. Barnett and persuaded others to go along with him, and such conduct should be chastised. And I think that this case speaks to what is happening within the public right now, because as we've heard, there is no legislative authority. The second thing I want to provide resources and information.
So Trustee Whitaker, I'm sorry, I know I gave Trustee Duncan a bit more time. So Trustee Whitaker, if you can wrap up your thought.
Do this for Nicole. I have some really important resources.
I know, I'm asking you to wrap your thought, please. Yeah, wrap up your thoughts.
So I would also like to tell parents about a great service that Family Smart offers. If you don't know who Family Smart is, go to familysmart.ca. We know right now that mental health is a challenge for kids and families are struggling. Family Smart will help with schools, parenting, eating disorders, anxiety, substance use, OCD, teen issues, collaborative problem solving, self-harm, and ADHD. And here's the most exciting and most important point. There is no wait list. This is run by volunteers. Somebody will get back to you where they may not be a practitioner. They've had lived experiences and they will help direct you to resources. So if there is anybody out there struggling, feels like they need to talk to somebody about parenting issues that are going on for them, please go to familysmart.ca.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Whitaker. We'll move on now to board committee reports. And before we do that, I just want to acknowledge that I appreciate there is a challenge with what the board is currently dealing with in terms of the suspension of 2 trustees that unfortunately pieces that were to remain in camera have been brought out. That is unfortunate that has happened. It does leave other trustees at the table feeling like they can't speak publicly, while there are other trustees who feel that they are fine to speak publicly. I want to be able to provide an opportunity for those trustees to speak publicly, but also to be aware that it is important that we are careful on this. So if trustees would like to connect this week, or if there are further conversations trustees would like to have, I am here. I am available to have these conversations. I'm available to provide information as I have from the very beginning. But I do not want trustees at the table feeling disadvantaged because some of them are maintaining in-camera confidentiality. So let us continue with our board meeting tonight. Nicole, yes, please go ahead quickly so we can continue to go through our committee work.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. I feel compelled to clarify with you as Chair and with the board that there is nothing from in-camera discussions that is in my report to the board. And so, you know, there's far more out there from in-camera discussions that has been released through letters, through the board chair.
Can we
and
have
through,
one person speak at a time, please? Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. I'm sorry, Nicole, please go ahead.
So, you know, I take issue with my trustee report being misconstrued as somehow releasing in-camera information. You know, I beg to differ. And so, you know, I think that if there's a concern about in-camera information coming out in the public, then I think we need to have that conversation, but I don't accept the contention that my trustee report releases in-camera information.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm not going to belabor the point. The point I'm trying to make is to let all trustees know that we all have a duty to confidentiality and keeping things in camera. Unfortunately, at a meeting last week, that was not followed. So I am doing my very best as chair to ensure that we are abiding by the principles of our code of ethics and the oaths that we agreed to when we became trustees. I don't want to belabor this, but I do see Jordan has her hand up. Jordan, I've allowed others to speak. I will give you an opportunity to speak here, but then I would like to continue.
I just want to point out that we do have a duty to uphold the decisions of the board. And that is really clear in our trustee code of ethics. And if you have concerns about process or anything that got us to this place, we have processes in place to deal with that. And I would love to hear more about your perspective. I missed having your voices at the debate. And it would be great to have those conversations in an appropriate way. But we do have a trustee code of ethics and we do have liabilities that we all need to be mindful of. So I really appreciate the chair's measured approach and look forward to just moving on here. But for me, it really isn't just about confidentiality. It is about that code of ethics and making sure that we're really impeccable moving forward.
Thank you. Okay, let us move to board committee reports, Education Policy and Directions Committee. Draft minutes from February 7th, 2022 meeting are for information only. We have the Operations, Policy and Planning Committee draft minutes from February 14th, 2022 are from information only, and we do have recommended motion regarding the school calendar. Can I dispense with reading the full text of the motion, trustees? Is that okay? I'm seeing mostly nods, so I'm going to assume that's okay. Thank you. So the motion is that the calendar be approved. So can I have a motion to approve, please? Moved by Tom, seconded by Elaine. Is there any discussion on the calendar for 2022-2023? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And any opposed? Nope, that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. We'll now go to D3, Audit Committee report from February 14th, 2022. Motion that the Board of Education School District 61 accept the December 2021 quarterly financial report as presented to the Audit Committee. Can I have a motion to accept? Moved by Tom, seconded by Jordan. Any discussion on the Audit Committee report? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on accepting the report from the Audit Committee. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. We'll now go to the district team leadership reports, interim superintendent's report. Interim superintendent, over to you.
Thank you, Chair Painter. I'll draw to your attention pages 2284 and to 285, the superintendent's report. a couple of highlights and one I would like to pull out. You'll see under goal 2 reference to the GVTA sponsored South Vancouver Island conference Tapestry. It's a tri-district. I wasn't able to attend, but I have gratitude and thanks to the organizing committee that has done work to bring this forward. Caleb Child was the keynote, and a very successful opportunity for teachers and CUPE members and admin. Also, the back on page 285, the gratitude. I would like to point out we have many people to thank for the tests that were distributed to staff, to Dr. Nemi and Carolyn Roberts for the 5-part learning series that occurred on the 16th and will continue on the 2nd, the 16th, and into April, as well as the work that the Budget Advisory Committee is doing. Many thanks to Lynn Yearwood, who did a lot of work to bring forward the T4s for the district. Also to Julie Lettner for bringing the amended budget for 2021-22. And again, just bringing back the thanks to the GVTA committee for the planning and hosting of the Tri-District Tapestry Day. So lots of gratitude throughout the district on the fantastic work that's occurring.
Superb. Thank you, Interim Superintendent Whitten, for your report. We have a recommended motion that the Board of Education of School District 61 receive the Interim Superintendent's report as presented. Can I have a motion to approve receipt? Moved by Elaine, seconded by Nicole. Thank you. Is there discussion on the Interim Superintendent's report, please? Doesn't need to be, but just checking. Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on receipt of the report. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Trustee questions. Trustee Whitaker, please.
Thank you. So my questions are I guess, through the chair to the superintendent and maybe to the secretary treasurer. As we're leading into budget season, I just want to get my head wrapped around a few items from our past that I'm just not sure where we've landed. So in June of 2019, the board passed several motions to deal with our our shortfall of the Burnside project, and we moved a lot of local capital. One was to the Board of Education approve $1 million from the Technology Replacement Reserve and local capital to be allocated to SJ Burnside. And then the next motion is to, when we receive the money from Pacifica Housing, to then put that money back into the Technology Replacement Reserve. So how do we see that? Has that happened? And how will we see that in our asks in the budget? Like, how does that, so is that $1 million now, poof, good for that budget, or what happened there? And then I guess, go ahead.
Sorry, Trustee Whitaker. I'm not intending to shift your question. I'm wondering if we can save that for the Secretary Treasurer's report, because I'd like to deal with the superintendent, unless the superintendent feels like she can answer that. But I want to save the space for the superintendent's report if we can.
Okay, well, it's not related to her report is why I put it here.
Okay, well, I'll let staff determine if they'd like to answer that here or if they want to go to the Secretary Treasurer's report. Secretary Treasurer Morris, is that okay for you to answer at this part of the agenda?
I'm fine with it if the board is.
Sure.
The Pacifica proceeds have not been received yet. They're expected, I believe, this summer. I'd have to double check that, don't quote me. And so that tech replacement fund has not been reimbursed yet. And so in terms of the budget being approved in April, I don't think that will be able to have an impact on our budget for 22-23. We could discuss during our surplus appropriation if we have an update on those proceeds coming in.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Trustee Whitaker, back to you.
Thank you. So along with the same motions, that the Board of Education approve $500,000 currently allocated to the Vic High project to be allocated to Burnside. And then the next motion is to approve 500,000 from the shoreline project to go to the Burnside. And then, anyway, and then the Board of Education, upon receipt of future local capital dollars from the Vic High project or other disposition, will allocate those $500,000 packages back. So I'm just wondering, to the shoreline and to the other project. So have we done that then? Because I don't believe that shoreline has occurred. So what happens because we aren't seeing that money from shoreline?
Through the chair.
Secretary Treasurer Morris. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. So through other capital proceeds coming into local capital from the sale at Lansdowne North and potentially the sale at Lansdowne South, we would be reimbursing the $500,000 shoreline item.
Okay, so if it were coming from the Lansdowne South, there'd really only be $125,000 left in local capital if we took the 500,000, because don't we just get the 25%?
25% of proceeds go into local capital. And so with the Lansdowne North and the Lansdowne South, it would be a considerable contribution to our local capital reserves.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Any other questions or comments on the, Nicole, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm happy to wait. This is actually a question through the chair to the Secretary Treasurer around the
We can do it now. We're doing it now.
Okay. Yeah, so I know, well, first of all, to the chair, to the Secretary Treasurer, thank you for clarifying that the $1 million that was reallocated from technology replacement reserve into local capital to be allocated to SG Burnside will be reimbursed once the $1 million is received from Pacifica Housing. That leaves in the, I think there was a suite of motions from June 2019 that the board passed, all in a similar vein, reallocating different funds from different budget envelopes to fund the shortfall at SG Burnside. The remaining balance of dollars that was reallocated is an amount of 2.5 million from various pots, such as I know Trustee Whitaker mentioned the 500,000 from Shoreline Seismic Project. There was also 200,000 from the Quadra Warehouse Project. I think it was 500,000 from the Vic High Seismic Project and so on. But I guess the point being is that I just want to clarify, of that $2.5 million that was reallocated to cover the Burnside shortages, how is that reflected in our balance sheet? So are these, when folks look at our budget and they note this $2.5 million and really, and I suppose, has been reallocated, it's not strictly speaking a deficit, although it left budget envelopes without sufficient funding, some of which we aren't anticipating we will need, and some of which presumably we will replenish. I just wonder if you could speak to, from a budget process perspective, how that's accounted for.
Okay, Secretary Treasurer Morris, over to you.
Sure. So we know that through local capital, the only way to allocate money is by board motion. And so the board had over time set aside local capital funds for many of the things that you've indicated. So tech replacement, the Vic High project before it was approved, Shoreline in its pre-approval, et cetera. And so it's at the board's will through board motion to reallocate those funds, which the board did in June 2019, reallocating from tech replacement, the Vic High project, Shoreline, et cetera. And so that's well within the board's purview in terms of how local capital decisions are made. And so there is no reflection of that on the financial statements in terms of the local capital fund owing itself, the local capital fund, to reimburse for certain initiatives. And that's why it's important to record those board motions so that we know the comings and goings from local capital and the decisions that the board has made. So it doesn't show up in the financial statements except the bottom line reserve, but it does lend itself to a thread through board motions and recorded minutes.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions on the interim superintendent's report? Seeing and hearing none, we have a motion to receive the interim superintendent's report. So I'll call the question. All those in favor of receipt? And Trustee Whitaker. Okay, thank you. That is unanimous. Trustee questions? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move to the Secretary Treasurer's report, monthly report. Secretary Treasurer Morris, over to you.
My report is provided to the board, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. We have a motion that is recommended that the Board of Education of School District 61 receive the Secretary Treasurer's report as presented. Can I have a motion to receive, please? Moved by Tom, seconded by Nicole. Thank you very much. Is there a discussion on the receipt of the report? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now go to the Secretary Treasurer's Report B, 2021-2022 Amended Annual Budget Bylaw, third reading. Before we go into third reading, I will allow Secretary Treasurer Morris an opportunity to just bring us into this topic.
Sure. So we know that the amended budget is due every February 28th, and we're right on the timeline here with third reading. This is a follow-up budget to the budget that is set in the spring called the preliminary budget. And each February, the board must give 3 readings of its amended budget that takes into account the updated enrollment in September and any surplus appropriations. And so given that first and second reading happened on February 22nd, we asked the board for third reading this evening so that we can submit this amended budget tomorrow.
Thank you. We have a motion. It's not long, so I don't mind reading it into the record that the Board of Education of School District 61 2021-2022 amended annual budget bylaw in the amount of $2,720,964,571 be read a third time, passed and adopted the 28th day of February 2022, and that the Secretary Treasurer and Board Chair be authorized to sign, seal, and execute the bylaw on behalf of the board. Can I have a motion, please? Moved by Elaine, seconded by Tom. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing no discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. We know that Lansdowne Middle School South Campus Disposal Bylaw has been removed from the agenda and moved to March 14th. So we'll now go down to question period. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have one question I forwarded to you, but happy to.
Thank you.
Read out as well.
See that. Okay, so the questions are, question 1, please provide all documents and records pertaining to the analysis of Lansdowne South Campus lands that substantiate the decision to declare 1.9 acres as surplus to educational needs. And question 2, please provide all documents and records pertaining to the appraisal of Lansdowne Campus lands, specifically the 1.9 acres identified in the proposed disposal. Not necessarily questions, but they were provided as part of question period, so I'm happy to read them into the record, so they are there. I will, if there's no further questions and I have no emails of questions, I will go to G, public disclosure of in-camera items. We have record of 5 in-camera items. And so we will now go to new business, notice of motions. H1 new business. Trustee Whitaker, reaffirm motion regarding working committee for draft compost and waste policy. I'll read the motion and then I'll turn it over to Trustee Whitaker that the Board of Education of School District 61 reaffirm its motion of June 2021 that the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria direct the superintendent to oversee the creation of a working committee and consultation process as outlined in Bylaw 9210 to prepare a draft compost and waste policy proposal which is in alignment with our environmental values and goals. We'll start, actually, we'll move before we debate. So Trustee Whitaker, I'm assuming you will want to move that. Can I have a seconder to put it on the table for discussion, please? Nicole second. Trustee Whitaker, over to you.
Well, we passed this motion last year and there's been no action on it whatsoever. My understanding is that there is thoughts from the superintendent to roll it into another committee. Not that I'm super satisfied with that, but I will leave it with the group to decide how they want to deal with it. However, this motion is on the books. It was duly voted on, so we need to do something with it. I'm assuming that this group will have far better wisdom other than just if we want to reaffirm it, I'm fine with that and we can set up a committee and get going, but we do need to do something with this.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Whitaker. As the seconder, Nicole, I'm happy if you would like to also motivate, and then we'll see if trustees or staff have any comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trustee Whitaker, to be fair, has said what needs to be said. I think we just need to decide if we're going to move ahead. And so we reaffirm the direction from the board, or if there is another plan or another suggestion that we take steps in order to get the ball rolling on that.
Thanks, Nicole. I want to turn to staff if there's any comments or questions with regard to the motion or motivations on this motion from trustees. In terms of Superintendent Whitten, do you have any context for us with regards to this?
As we know, we have an ad hoc climate action committee that will begin its work, and I wonder whether that committee can take forward this motion and look to creating a draft policy proposal which aligns with the environmental values and goals. I'm not sure that two working committees or one ad hoc committee and one working committee will be the most effective and efficient, but I will obviously follow the board wishes on this.
Thank you, Interim Superintendent. Elaine.
Just wondering if a motion refer is in order to refer it to the climate ad hoc committee for them to bring a recommendation on back to us if they're willing to take on the work before we rescind the motion. I think the referral to that committee might have them look at it first and see if they can roll it into their work plan.
Thanks, Elaine. I appreciate that. I think the challenge, and I appreciate Trustee Whitaker pointing this out, is that the motion that's moved and adopted by the board was around the creation of a working committee and consultation process. And from my perspective, specifically in relation to the compost and waste policy. And I wonder if there's a challenge of referring a motion that looks like it's creating a separate committee to another committee to review that motion. So I'm wondering if perhaps instead of, I'm just musing here, instead of referring, if we need to maybe reconsider and change the language if we want, because I don't see this being referred to the committee necessarily doing what the motion intends, which I think is my struggle. Elaine, I'll go back to you.
Another suggestion might be to rescind this motion and then create another separate motion which directs the climate action, it's an ad hoc committee, to prepare the draft compost and waste policy, which is in alignment with our environmental values and goals, but to rescind the whole motion and just send the policy portion of it to the new committee.
That's an option the board could consider if they chose to. Trustee Whitaker, I saw your hand up. You're not muted. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll let you guys kick it around a bit more.
Well, we can't kick it around too much because we're in a board meeting. We can really only speak once to it.
So I'll move to rescind. I'll move to rescind this motion.
Okay, so Trustee Leonard has moved to rescind the motion. Do I have a seconder to rescind? Okay, seconded by Tom. So now we're discussing whether or not we're going to rescind the original motion, not the motion presented here. And that's a challenge, actually. So
That is the.
that is a challenge because we have a motion on the floor which is not adopted. So can I ask Elaine and Tom, can you withdraw your motion to rescind, please?
Absolutely.
So here's the challenge, trustees. I understand what folks are saying. We have a motion here that is specifically asking us to reaffirm a previous motion that we have adopted. We could defeat this motion, rescind the previous motion, and then have a new motion to direct the Climate Action Committee to do this work. That's an option. But right now, the motion on the table is this motion to reaffirm. So we have to address this motion, which is on the floor. So I see the best option to defeat this motion, rescind the June 2021 motion, defeat that one, and or approve the rescinding, and then have a new motion. That's how I see this playing out. I'm not trying to direct anything, but that's my perspective from where I'm at. Do trustees have any thoughts on that? And I'll be flexible with the one speaking limit here because we're going a bit beyond in terms of where we're at. So if folks want to speak again, Nicole, go ahead.
Yeah, I just I'm wondering whether or not, and I'd like to hear from other folks about this if I could through the chair, whether or not it's realistic to have all of this work that's being contemplated by the original motion that we're here to reaffirm, whether all of this work can really be completed in addition to the work of the Climate Committee, which is considerable. So I wonder if we can just kind of keep that in our minds, that this piece of work that this particular motion is calling us to do is quite focused, but I think quite potentially labor intensive. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be helpful to load that onto the work of the Climate Action Committee. So I just wondered if we could think about that before we move forward.
Thank you for that, Nicole. Trustees, I'm giving some leeway on the one-time speaking rule because this is a little challenging here. So if trustees have any comments. Yes, Secretary Treasurer Morris. Sorry, I hope I haven't missed you with your hand up there. Go ahead.
Since there's some leeway, I wondered, I guess staff wasn't called upon before this new motion was put on the floor. So sorry to interrupt, but I wonder, I think through the superintendent, I believe that all of the outstanding climate motions or any motion that's been passed relative to climate may be reviewed at our first meeting. And I wonder, rather than putting away or doing away with any of them tonight, if we could do that at the committee meeting and bring back an action plan around the motions, just to maybe make some recommendations. I don't know. I haven't talked to the superintendent about this. I'm just putting it out there.
Well, thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. I suppose a recommendation from the committee could be, not that I'm trying to put words in their mouth, could be something to do with this original motion from 2021, if that was put to them. So, but it is the board's it is on the table for the board to consider. Elaine, go ahead.
So here's an option. If Trustee Whitaker this evening withdrew the motion, and then in the working group, as the Secretary Treasurer has just said, they come back with, if they see their work, including this motion from June whenever it was.
2021.
June 2021, then we could then go forward in another meeting, whether to rescind the original motion or not. But we would need to withdraw this motion or defeat it, as you said before. Might be easier to withdraw it and have the Secretary Treasurer and or the Superintendent report back to us after they've had their first meeting on policy to see if they can take that on.
Sure, thank you. Trustee Whitaker.
I will table the motion to a specific time, being the ops meeting, which will give everybody time, I think, to come to some conclusion on this. Does that help?
Okay, we have a motion to table to March 7th ops. Do I have a seconder? Nicole? Okay, so the motion is to table this current motion to March 7th ops. Is that correct, Trustee Whitaker? That's what you're looking for? Okay. At that point, the motion would come back to the committee for further discussion. Do trustees want to debate or discuss referral to March 7th ops? I'm not seeing anything. So I will call the referred. Did I get a seconder on that referral? Yes, I did, Nicole. Sorry, thank you. Okay, so there's no discussion. I'll call the question on referral of this motion to March 7th, combined at policy ops, because it's a double meeting. So all those in favor? And that, okay, opposed? Okay, Elaine opposed, the balance in favor. Okay, we'll now go to the new B, which is petition to the Minister of Education. So that the Board of Education of School District 61 petition the Minister of Education for an order under Section 30 of the School Act to reduce the number of trustees from School District 61 from 9 to 7 to take effect in the upcoming election, October 2022. Trustee Whitaker has moved. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Nicole. Okay, Trustee Whitaker, over to you.
Thank you. So being painfully aware of our budget shortcomings, I think it behooves the board to look around everywhere that they can to find cuts that don't affect the classroom. And this is one way that we can do that. The Greater Victoria School Board is one of the few districts left with 9 trustees. When we compare 9 trustees for Victoria to Surrey, which has 7 trustees and 130 schools, I question, why do we have 9? When we look at Kelowna, which is similar in size to Victoria, they have 46 schools and they have 7 trustees, and they've seem to be doing just fine that way. So as well, when we look at the historical evolution of the boards across BC, at one time, school boards used to set the school tax rate for municipalities. And at that time, Victoria had trustees per jurisdiction and area. So you would elect a trustee in your area, and then all together they came together and became the board. But when we stopped setting the tax rate, that was removed, and we were just 9 trustees from all across the district in 6 municipalities. So for me, I think it is a great opportunity to reduce the cost of the board. I also can't help but notice how few people are stepping forward to run for trustee. And it's just generally become accepted that new trustees are elected when older trustees or seasoned trustees choose to step aside. I think it's important that through democracy that we have a robust election, and that candidates work hard to or have to actually participate in the campaign. It's my opinion that elected officials should do the work to get elected and not work hard to get elected. And I think that this is an opportunity by reducing us from 9 to 7 trustees to 1, reduce our budget, and to have a more robust election and a stronger governing board. The only way we can do that is to request, the only way that can be done is with a ministerial order. So I would like us to petition the minister for that before the upcoming election.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Nicole, as the seconder, I invite you to motivate if you'd like.
Yeah, I actually like to reserve my spot to speak for after I hear from my colleagues.
Absolutely, as is your right. Any other debate from trustees around the table on this motion? I'll go to Elaine and then Jordan. Elaine, go ahead.
Well, I thought long and hard about this, and I'm not in favor of going from 9 to 7 for a variety of reasons. I know that Surrey was cited and Kelowna was cited. Number one, they're not the capital city. They don't have 6 municipalities with 6 local governments. They don't have all of the MLAs running around like we do. So we have a whole slew of external things that happen in Greater Victoria as opposed to where some of the other places cited have. And so I still think when you look at the workload and the committees and the multitude of committees that we've assigned over the last couple of years to staff and trustees to attend, it would be very difficult for 7 trustees to fill that void that it's difficult sometimes for 9 trustees to fill all the committees and everything we've been asked to do. So yes, there would be a small amount of budget savings, and although we're always looking for that, I'm not willing to support this motion simply because of the money that might be saved. I think there's bigger issues at stake than just looking at that. And although I do agree that there is a little bit of money to be saved in the scheme of things and what's expected from us, we're not going to vote in favor of this motion.
Thanks, Elaine. Jordan?
Thanks. Sorry, I'd unmuted myself. Hopefully you didn't hear the kids snoring in the background. So I've thought long and hard about this as well, and have at times thought that this would be a good idea. My hesitations around it are just because I feel like, there are a lot of smaller boards, not a lot, there are some smaller boards that have 9 trustees. And that if we were to go down, what does that say? And what does it message about the value of boards? And again, the workload, like on our board, it is significant. And if, we see an increase in workload, I don't know that that makes it a more accessible job for people, because, this is, while we are compensated, it still is, most of us have full-time jobs or so in terms of attracting more people to run, which I agree is a super important thing and something we should be looking at, I'm not sure. The other thing I think is that this would be a really significant change and something I think we'd want to do consultation around. So I know in SD68 and Nanaimo, they were set to do this last term and ended up having a full consultation process around it, and in the end heard from their stakeholders, specifically the teachers, that no, they wanted 9, and so they didn't end up going forward, because what they learned is that their partners really valued having a diversity of voices on the board, and that there was a feeling that more was better. So I have no idea if that's what our communities would feel, but certainly I think I would support be more likely to support consultation around going down to 7 than I necessarily would just jumping to it and assuming that we know what our partners and community would like around this. It's a complex issue, and I see the other side. I see the other side of it too. So yeah, those are my thoughts right now.
Thanks, Jordan. Nicole, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I could move a motion to refer this to March combined ed and ops. I think that having heard from Trustee Whitaker and hearing from other colleagues, that we could benefit from some further consideration and hopefully the opportunity to hear from our stakeholders and our rights holders on this.
Yeah, you certainly can. So there's a motion to refer to our combined meeting on March 7th. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Tom. Thank you, Tom. Any discussion on the motion to refer? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on the motion to refer this to March 7th combined ed policy and ops. All those in favor? And opposed? That is Trustee Leonard opposed with the balance in favor. Okay, we'll go next to Trustee Whitaker's motion, BC STA membership. Motion reads that the Board of Education of School District 61 does not renew its membership in the BC School Trustees Association for the upcoming year. Do I have a seconder for this motion, please? Seconded by Nicole. Trustee Whitaker, over to you.
Thank you. Boy, you know what a few years does. I seem to recall when I first became a trustee that this was also a topic of conversation at the time. And I think I was on the other side of the fence trying to convince trustees not to let their membership lapse. But again, our budget is very, very tight. This is one way that we can save money. And I don't think it is a secret that I am very disappointed that as a membership organization, that when trustees were put in what I think is significant jeopardy for their role within the province and their existence, that the BCSTA was silent and has made, as far as I know, no comments, no reaching out, anything. And I'm sorry, but an association that is a member-based organization, the number one responsibility is to defend and to support its members. There's been lots of discussion over the years about boards and their value in the system. And thus, I'm very concerned when I don't hear our provincial organization standing up and representing that. I also note in one of our correspondence letters about the Ministry of Education taking early childhood learning. And the fact that in that letter, it says that the childcare delivery is moving to the Ministry of Education. However, it will not be governed by boards of education, nor will there be responsibility over delivering the provincial curriculum by the boards of education. So this concerns me and scares me that boards of education are possibly their days are quite numbered when we see that those areas we've normally had some governance over that we don't. And when our provincial organization doesn't step up, I'm also quite concerned. I also, and I must be honest and say it's been a while since I've been to a BCSTA event. I've been an advocate in education for many, many years, and often I don't feel, I haven't felt like that was a good use of my time when I'm caring for my father as well. But I did attend the event as chair in October, and I was extremely disappointed in that event to repeatedly feel that the president of the organization kept telling trustees to hold their comments and to not be long-winded, to the point that when the minister actually got to the mic and was there for questions, no questions came forward. I even turned to the new executive director at that time and said, I just really wish she would stop saying that and telling trustees to not ask questions. So I guess I'm just very disappointed with the provincial organization at this time. Having been the president of a provincial organization, I really expect more defense of membership from my provincial organization. So anyway, it's about a $50,000 plus cost savings to our budget if we don't do this. Many districts have done this, or several districts have done this in the past for 1 year, just for those savings.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Nicole, as the seconder, I'll allow you to motivate next, and then I'll go to the rest of the board.
Yeah, I would also like to hear from my colleagues first, so thanks.
Not a problem. Thank you. Colleagues, the motion on the floor is that the SD61 board does not renew its membership in the BC School Trustees Association for the upcoming year. You've heard Trustee Whitaker's motivation. Do you have any comments on the motion in question? Elaine and then Angie. Go ahead, Elaine.
Well, over the years, this motion has come up in the years I've been on the board a couple of times, and we've always managed to find the money in the budget process, because it usually came down to the money that it's costing us. It's never been up to this point, from my recollection, about what they were doing right or wrong, as opposed to what it was to save it in the budget process. I don't know how many times we've asked them for help over the last 3 years with the board that we have right now, but it's more than the fingers on one hand, the times that we've called them in the last 3 or 4 years and asked for help or advice or legal opinions. So if we have an issue with things that they're doing wrong, I think it's our responsibility to tell them what they can do better, how they can serve us better, rather than just throwing up our hands and running out of the organization and saying, we don't like what you did on this, so we're cutting our losses and running. So I really think that as the responsible board, it would be something we need to do, is put our heads together, figure out what it is that they've done that we're not happy with, and send them a letter and tell them. Because I've always said to people, I can't fix anything I'm doing unless you tell me what I've done wrong. And so we haven't done that. So we haven't given them the voice to defend what it is that we're accusing them of, or a trustee is accusing them of. So I'm not in favor of this motion. I think it's premature in the discussion that's come forward tonight, and we haven't had a chance to analyze or talk about it.
Thanks, Elaine. I've got Angie and then Tom. Angie, go ahead. and then Jordan.
Thanks. I've attended every BCSTA and Vista event, I think every single one, aside from the AGMs, but all the biannual meetings of Vista and the academies, and lots of training since I've become a trustee. And I've been really impressed with the quality of the professional development, and I've learned a lot from the trustees around the island and the province, and I personally would really miss that opportunity to learn from colleagues further afield than Victoria. I'm curious, I don't know, Trustee Whitaker, what you're talking about, that you're disappointed with them not doing. Could for clarification, could you be more specific?
Trustee Whitaker, just a quick question over to you. If you have any specific examples, that would be helpful.
So one, I think that they should have spoken out over trustees being suspended. I understand our board might not be the one to call them on that, but I do think that that was an issue. I'm also concerned. I'm concerned when I hear that trustees that go to these events, what they bring back, because I think that is the important thing. It is about what we bring back to our trustee reports to tell everybody. But so far over the past while, well, I appreciate that you're learning, you know, so far the ideas that have come back have been to call each other by our first name. I think additionally, when I look at how often we have contacted the BCSTA, apparently it hasn't been overly helpful because we continue to have problems. Additionally, I find it really shocking. I can't call the BCSTA as an individual trustee and get any help or support, but our staff and our chair can, but not individual trustees. So I'm just concerned in that regard as to a member organization that I feel has lost its way.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Angie, since you were still talking, I'm happy to let you continue your statement if you'd like.
No, thanks. I'm finished.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Tom and then Jordan.
Thank you. I think that the value of the organization lies in its ability to have a larger voice than an individual board does. I also believe that I think it's a big step for most new trustees to take on a governance role without really having an idea how that works. I know that for myself, it really took me a full term to kind of, you know, realize what my roles and responsibilities were. I also think that, as Angie pointed out, like as a new trustee, she went to as many of these meetings as she could and learned a lot. And I feel that it does do a good job of providing information to trustees who are relatively new to the role. So I would not be in favor of letting go of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. I'm going to go to Jordan, and then I've got Nicole, and then I'm putting myself on the list at the end.
Thanks, Chair. So the BCSTA is a member-driven organization, as Trustee Whitaker pointed out, but the member is the board. It's not individual trustees. They represent boards of education. And that's why they provide support to boards through the chair, who is the legislated conduit. And that's, to me, part of the value there is that it gives voice to all of the various boards of education in the province. I think for me as a trustee, when I think back to some of the what felt like the most effective advocacy that this board has done, it's been through the BCSTA. It's the motions that we've brought to the AGM, especially anything that's looking for provincial level change or like really affecting systems. We can advocate as SD61, or we can advocate as provincial boards of education, which just simply gives us a bigger platform. And I think especially as we're in leaner times coming out of the pandemic, which is going to require, really strong and steady leadership. And I think there are going to be economic consequences felt all the way through the K-12 system and all, the people serving systems in the province. We're going to need a unified voice. And of course, that is challenging because, individual trustees aren't necessarily unified. And our board isn't alone, although we might be an extreme example of there being discord or divide. I mean, it is true, trustees are diverse, and so are boards of education, but we work through our various processes. So, if an individual doesn't like, that's why you work through the processes. If you don't like the president, then you vote for somebody else, because we have annual elections for that. If we're concerned about the quality of information coming back from AGM, then let's work on that as a board and have those discussions. If we don't like the quality of the Pro-D, which personally I have found to be really helpful, and some of the keynotes I've heard have been like just knocked it out of the park. But if you don't like it, then, work through the channels to suggest. I mean, I sat on the professional learning committee for a couple of years. When I traveled to Vancouver, all of that was paid for by the BCSTA too. Like, just to be clear, we don't pay for that when we participate. And that committee experience at the provincial level and getting to hear what's happening at other boards has been really valuable too, because I think sometimes we can get a little limited in our view about what the options are or what's happening. And so it also foments this sort of creativity around how can we do advocacy better? How can we better support student learning in our district? What's happening? What's the cutting edge? So I really, support our membership in the BCSTA. I think that, if there are issues with the BCSTA, then there are processes through which we can do to support them. And then just in terms of like the cost savings, which for me would be the strongest reason to end our membership. Honestly, I think if you added up all of the advice that our board, because again, they won't provide legal advice to an individual trustee, but they do to our board. They do provide consultation. They provide all sorts of services. They also help us, in myriad ways in the conversations that they are able to have with staff and with board chairs. I think we're probably saving money. If we had to go and pay out of pocket for those consultations with an independent consultant, I think we'd hit those annual dues really quickly without all of those added benefits that you've heard discussed today in terms of that provincial level voice and that trustee education. And, I really think we want a diverse board of different people. We want them to come with all different ideas and skills, but no matter what, you're going to want your trustees to be educated in K-12 education and what's happening right now. So we're always going to need BCSTA to facilitate that learning and those conversations with other member boards. So I won't be supporting the motion, but I thank Trustee Whitaker for bringing it forward and giving us the opportunity to have the discussion.
Thanks, Jordan. Nicole, you're next.
Yeah, I think that there is some structural issues with the way that membership is handled through the BCSTA. And I think, Trustee Whitaker is right to point out that as individual trustees, I mean, I think the hint is in the title. It's the BC Trustee Association, right? British Columbia, BCSTA. So, frankly, one would expect that as a trustee member, you have some kind of support from that association. And so it makes it, in my view, structurally quite problematic that there is this sifting or this sort of funnel approach whereby certain members of that association have greater access to the resources, to the expertise that association can offer, but not just particular members have greater access, so do, exempt staff. So it is much easier for a trustee, rather, it's much easier for a secretary treasurer or a superintendent of a district to approach our association and get advice than it is for me as an individual member. And to me, that's very problematic. So I think that Trustee Whitaker is raising some structural impediments that I think that the BCSTA and all trustees really need to consider and take seriously. That doesn't mean there aren't benefits. It doesn't mean that there aren't things to be gained through membership, but because of those structural impediments and the fact that there's certain trustee members that have greater access, despite the fact, and I guess from my perspective, some people have greater access, despite the fact that around a board table, a chair is one among equals. And what a chair is a presiding officer. And they should have no more power, and in law have no more power than any other trustee around our board table. And I think, where we start to get in trouble, and I think possibly structurally where the BCSTA starts to lose some member support, is where they conflate the role of the chair and they hold it up as though there's some kind of power or authority attached to that beyond that individual being a presiding officer. So I really appreciate that Trustee Whitaker has brought that forward. And having said all that, I do think that we would benefit from discussing this at our standing committee. And so I would also put a motion on the floor to refer this to our combined meeting in March. So, I hope that there'll be an opportunity for not just greater discussion, but I hope that we'll also have the benefit of hearing from our stakeholders and our rights holders at that point.
Okay, I had intended to speak to the motion, but there's now a referral on the motion.
I'm sorry.
So that's okay. Is there a seconder? Is there a seconder to refer? Moved by or seconded by Trustee Whitaker. So we have a motion on the floor to refer to combined on March 7th. Any speakers to the motion? Elaine.
So I'll be voting against the motion to refer. I think that we should deal with this evening. March is becoming a very busy agenda, and I think we've got budget in there as long as a bunch of other things. And I don't think that the reason that was the reason it was given from referral, in my perspective, is enough to warrant not finishing with the discussion of this tonight. So I will not be voting for the motion to refer.
Thank you, Elaine. Any other discussion on the motion to refer? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of referring to March 7th combined ed and ops? All those in favor of referral? All those opposed? And so that is Trustee Nicole Duncan and Whitaker in favor. The balance opposed. The motion to refer fails. Go back to the main motion, so I'll get to say my piece, which really was just that I appreciate trustees, and I've certainly spoken to trustees across the province in my time as trustee about the value of the BCSTA. I do appreciate the concerns being brought here tonight around individual capacity to access. And certainly if that is a consideration, I think we should, as a board, bring that forward to the BCSTA. If we're not a member, we can't change the organization to make it better. So I would highly recommend to my colleagues that if we want to make the organization better, to ensure that not just SD61 in the opinion of some trustees is better served, but that our colleagues across the province are better served. We should bring that through our board. For my piece, I have valued the learning opportunities that I've had with BCSTA, and not just that, the friendships that I've been able to make through the connections, the going to meetings, going to AGM, going to Trustee Academy, and having an opportunity to work as the chair of the legislative committee for the BCSTA, working on bringing forward not just provincial council motions, but AGM motions, and debating and discussing with my colleagues about supporting trustees and helping them formulate motions and do their work. the capacity of the BCSDA to support trustees in learning how to do the job of trustee, I think is it can't be understated. It is incredibly beneficial, and I do appreciate Trustee Jordan Waters bringing up the fact that we would probably lose money. It would probably be more expensive for us to receive legal advice and support if we moved away from the BC School Trustees Association, because they do provide significant advice. They do provide significant support to boards of education and to staff. And another helpful reminder, as has been said, the board is the member. All trustees benefit from that in terms of being able to go to different events, conferences, AGMs, receiving information, receiving news from our colleagues. Incredible amount of work done by the communications staff at the BCSDA to inform what we're doing. Incredible amount of work done by BCSDA staff to put on conferences and AGMs and training events. I mean, an amazing amount of work done by that organization to support boards and trustees across the province. So I would hazard a guess that if you ask the majority of trustees, and of course, I don't have anything to actually prove this, but I would hazard a guess that if you ask the majority of trustees across the province, do you think the BCSDA is providing value for money? They would say yes. And I think if this board has concerns, we should move that through an appropriate process to bring it to the BCSDA's attention. So I'm not going to be supporting this because I do value tremendously the work of the BCSDA, and I think their board, their staff, they provide unparalleled service to boards all across the province. So I will leave it at that, and I will call the question on the motion. And again, the motion is that the Board of Education of School District 61 does not renew its membership in the BC School Trustees Association for the upcoming year. So if you vote, I'm sorry, go ahead, Trustee.
Yeah,
Duncan.
sorry, Chair, just point of order. I just wonder if Trustee Whitaker would like to close before we vote.
Thank you. I'm tired. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Trustee Whitaker, you may close.
Yes, thank you for that. And I am hearing the comments of my colleagues. But I still think that there's a lot of work to be done at the BCSTA. I do note that, two of our trustees sit on committees, and I wonder how those committees are chosen. Anyway, I do think that there is some cost savings there. I hear what you're all saying. I guess, what I will just throw out there, because I know that two of you do sit on committees, I guess I just wonder where, the elections are coming up for the BCSTA. What happens when a trustee is elected to a director position, but does not successfully win in the next election as a trustee in their district? I'm curious about that. I'm just curious how BCSTA handles all of its structures and something like that. And maybe you'll have to get back to me. I don't know.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. I'm happy to take that question forward to BCSTA
Sure
and get. Not really sure what that was for, but okay. That seemed a little unnecessarily hostile. All right, so we will go to the motion. I'll call the question. All those in favor of not renewing BCSD membership, please signify. Those opposed to the motion to not renew membership. And abstentions. So that is Trustee Whitaker in favor, Trustee Duncan abstaining, the balance opposed, the motion fails. All right, trustees, I do have some last minute questions that have come in. So with the indulgence of the board, I would like to just bring these questions forward and answer them as best as I can, or get support from staff. So the first, although the board chair recently claimed that the board sanctioned two of its trustees to the fullest extent possible, he did not define in any detail the fullest extent to which a board can discipline any of its members. Can the board chair confirm or deny that the board's legal authority includes the inherent power to effectively reduce the number of active trustees on a board of education without a ministerial order under the School Act? And so I will say that, and I appreciate the question. The board has inherent authority to determine its own procedure and to take whatever actions it needs to take and it deems necessary to take to protect its ability to effectively fulfill its statutory responsibilities. And this includes censure and suspension. The board has a statutory responsibility under the Workers' Compensation Act to protect employees from bullying and harassing behavior, and the specific actions that the board took in this case were passed in furtherance of that duty. So we'll go to the next question, which is 3 questions of the same. So this is going to be directed to staff. Staff, I appreciate if you can't answer this tonight, but we can put a notice on. I am concerned that the Board of Trustees has abrogated their their fiduciary responsibility to act in the best interest of the school district in their attempts to dispose of school district property for less than its current accurate market value. Did the board and district in fact conduct an appraisal of the property at Lansdowne South immediately prior to entering into the purchase sale agreement with the Hospice Society? If so, can you please provide the date of this appraisal as well as the appraised value of this property? If not, will an appraisal of the property be arranged prior to selling it, bearing in mind that failing to do so would be an abrogation of responsibility? So I will turn over to Secretary Treasurer Morris, who can probably help us answer that question.
Sure. So an appraisal was not done immediately before entering into an agreement. The appraisal was completed July 2020. The purchase price proposed is higher than the appraisal. We don't necessarily, because the appraisal is part of an in-camera discussion, we haven't released that into public. And I would disagree or not concur or not acknowledge that failure to do so as per the last sentence of the question is not an abrogation of responsibility.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. Final question regarding Chair Painter's February 24th letter. In the 4 sessions with external consultants where role of trustee was discussed, was the result of these discussions a mutual understanding between staff and all trustees of what the role of a trustee is in SD61? If so, is this information publicly available? 2, who selected the facilitators for these board training sessions? I think the first question is maybe challenging to answer because I cannot speak for all trustees. In terms of the information being publicly available, these were all in-camera meetings and work to support the Board of Education, so they would not be public. Number 2, who selected the facilitators of these board training sessions? I believe that is likely also in camera, but I'm going to lean on either the interim superintendent or the secretary treasurer. Is that something we are able to disclose in terms of the process by which we chose facilitators for our trustee training sessions? Who wants to take that one?
I can take that one if you like. I think
Sure.
we have to check back. I mean, I don't know if the superintendent can speak to that tonight, but I can't, I don't have that data available to me tonight, and we would have to check to see in what forum those facilitators were decided upon.
Okay, interim superintendent Whitten, same concur. Okay.
Yeah.
What I can do, I can forward the question to staff and we can review and bring back an answer for the next board meeting. And that is it for questions from the public tonight. So seeing no further motions on the floor, no notices of motion, I will call for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Tom, seconded by Nicole. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees and staff, for your work this evening. And thank you to the public for presenting as well. We'll see everybody at our next